All right. Good evening. We're going to be calling the Planning and Zoning Board meeting to order. Yeah, there was a slight delay doing for technical reasons of about 6 minutes, and there have been no official business in that period of time from 7 to 6 or 7:06. So as is our custom to lead with a pledge of allegiance to our great nation, I invite everybody who can and willing to join me in pledging allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We'll start now with roll call, starting with Gary Jansen. Not present. Paul Springer, of course, I'm present. Brian Shelton.
Present.
Rick Schellenberger. Scott Phillips.
Here.
Steve Conway.
Here.
And Dalton Wilson.
Here.
All right, we now have a quorum, so we can proceed and set and amend the agenda. Do we have a motion to set or amend the agenda? Not, I move that we set the agenda as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to set the agenda that's before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is set as of this evening. Our next item, of course, is approval of draft minutes. I reference you to the minutes that are attached to your documents as of May 23rd, 2013. The draft minutes are before you. I make the motion that we approve the draft minutes as they stand.
Second.
And I have a second. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the minutes now stand as official minutes of the May 23rd meeting. Communications, staff, any communications you'd like to share tonight?
Right.
Okay. All right, we have a couple of public hearings before the Planning and Zoning Board this evening. And first one, of course, a review of Special Plat 2023-01. And that's the application by William Eric, pursuant to City Code 17.12, who is petitioning to build a 3,360 square foot commercial building on property currently addressed as 2001 South Meridian here in Valley Center. Staff?
Thank you. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Before you this evening, yes, is a site plan for Mr. Bill Eric. He is with us this evening in the audience, as well as an engineer from Baughman, Mr. Kurt Harris, and they will be more than happy to answer any questions you may have as the applicant and the applicant's engineer. Again, as was previously stated, this is for a proposed 3,360 square foot commercial building facility. And I would note after the staff report, there are some renderings, facade renderings, and then the site plans after that. Both the facade renderings and the site plans have been reviewed and approved by the city staff review team. So for those of you that are newer to the board, how this process works is once a site plan, and this applies to all new commercial construction in Valley Center, the first process of that is that they submit their plans, and then those plans are reviewed by the city staff review team, which is comprised of myself and then representatives from the public safety department, the public works department, and the city engineer. And so in most cases, we do go through a few revisions of the site plans, and I will tell you these have been through a few revisions, but they have been approved by the city staff review team for presentation tonight, and for final approval by you as the Planning and Zoning Board. What happens with these commercial projects is once they are approved by you, approved by this board, then the applicant is able to submit a formal building permit and actually start the construction process. So again, this has gone through the standard process. The public notices were sent out as well. I received no one was in objection of this project. There were no questions asked by the general public either. But again, city staff is recommending approval of this. I will note that because of the location of this building being on a major thoroughfare of the community, being on Meridian, we have asked that a 25% of the facade be of a stone or masonry facade covering. And so the applicant has decided to go with brick. So I know this picture is a little fuzzy, but this will be a 25% facade in brick on the what faces Meridian, so the west facade, and then what you can see from the north and south as well. There'll be a few overhead doors that are shown here, as well as just regular doors. Parking will consist of one ADA stall and then 2 regular stalls, which do conform to the city's zoning standards of parking structures for a commercial building of this nature. There will be no additional driveways connecting to Meridian. This will utilize existing right-of-way access that's used by the strip mall building directly to the north. This is on the same parcel as that building, as well as the 2 storage buildings behind it. And so there is no need for adding any more driveways on that very high traffic, heavily traveled area of Meridian. And utilities are already in the area, and city staff is allowing the applicant to tie into existing infrastructure. And so that's been covered as well. So again, I would stand for any questions, but again, city staff is recommending approval of this site plan application. And again, once the approval is given by, granted by you as the board, then Mr. Eric can pursue getting a building permit, and this building will start construction hopefully in the near future.
All right.
And would recommend to Vice Chairperson Spranger that we open the public hearing, and if the applicant wants to speak, invite him.
That's where we're going to go.
Okay.
All right. At this point in this meeting, we're going to open up the hearing for comments from the public, and that is as of 7:13 this evening. And anybody that would like to speak in terms of this project, for or against on the project, anybody like to make any other comments?
Okay.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing as of 7:14. All right. Okay. We'd like to probably open this up for some questions for board members at this point. We can. Anybody like to open with questions, comments, concerns? You have a rendering in terms of where it looks from the street view. From Meridian, do you have a okay, that's what it's going to be?
Yes. Yeah. So what you see is the top picture. This would be looking south, southwest. So if you were driving, this would be the view you would see if you were heading south on Meridian. So again, the 2 large garage bay doors, those are facing Meridian. So that's the the east facade. So that would be the view that you'll see as you're driving south on Meridian. And then the second picture would be, this is looking northeast. And so you can see the back, this is the back of the building. So that's the west facade. And then the south facade is what you can see here in this picture. So again, the south, east, and north facades will have that brick along that bottom 25% of each of those facades. So again, the south, east, and north.
Do we have is there a color selection for the metal?
I believe, and Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the final color scheme, the tan and red? Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. Any comments from members? Okay, this is drainage has all been addressed and uses are all addressed, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. All right. For one, of course, as we as the city grows, especially around Meridian, this member would, of course, like to see as much attention to the appearance of buildings as possible. So we aren't just a collection of metal buildings. Because it sets the image for the city and going forward in the next 10, 20 years. So but it meets all the city requirements as of code today.
Yes. And then, of course, with this being a commercial building, right now Sedgwick County is conducting commercial building inspections for us. With that being the case, what will happen is the building plan, so just the building plans, not the site plans, but the building
Right.
plans are reviewed by Sedgwick County
Okay,
to make sure that they do adhere to our adopted building code.
sure.
And so once the building permit is filed, right now, again, we're still contracting with Sedgwick County to do the building inspections on the commercial side. And so this building will be inspected by Sedgwick County staff as the building is constructed.
Okay. And there's a windowless building, I take it. Okay. All right. All right, public hearing is closed. Staff, any other questions for staff?
Do we have an estimated timeline on the completion of the project? I know you didn't have a specific date on when it was going to start, but from start to finish, approximately how long that's going to take?
I defer to the applicant. Bill, do you know a actual construction timeline?
Month and a half, probably.
Yeah, metal building goes up quick.
Yeah, month and a half.
Figured as much. I didn't know with the draining and utilities, if that was going to add anything. I know we got a lot of that going on right now.
No, this, again, with sewer and water already being on site is pretty easy hookup. And then drainage has been addressed as well to make sure that it flows into existing storm sewer outlets in the area.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, then at this point, we're going to have to make a decision, gentlemen. The recommended motion, of course, is based on the city staff recommendations and public comments and the discussion by the planning board. I make the motion to approve based on the fact that it meets all our city code in terms of both aesthetics and obviously, the rest of it. So anybody like to second that one?
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody who's opposed at this point? Hearing no opposed, we have, you now have a project. Okay. Now you have to build and pay for it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I would just, going forward, just encourage the applicant to anything you can do to enhance the appearance of the building, given the fact that, it is Meridian. It is a core city. So anything you can do as you're in the construction process. Because I'm assuming there's no landscaping requirement. Yeah. All right. Now we're going to move on to old and unfinished business.
Nothing this evening.
Okay. And now we'll go to item I, which is new business.
Yes.
Ah,
So attached to the agenda packet, there is a memo. This is in regards to our fences. So recently it was brought to city staff's attention that the city, while we do have adopted fence regulations, we do not have specifically fence design regulations in regards to what's sometimes referred to as a good neighbor fence. So a good neighbor fence refers to the side of and this mainly is associated with wooden fences where associated posts, rails, and bracings are located on the interior of the fence. In other words, what faces outwards is the clean side. And so city staff was asked to look at making a revision to our fence code. Our fence regulations are housed in the zoning code, in the city's zoning code in chapter 17. And so in looking at what we should do, how we should move forward, of course, it's always good to see what your neighbors are doing. So I looked at 10, this chart here includes 10 communities, including Valley Center. And this looks at whether or not the good neighbor fence requirement is part of the adopted code. I would say we can take out from this 10, you can take out Mays, Park City, and Wichita, as they really don't require, unless under certain special circumstances, they don't even require a fencing permit, whereas we and these other communities that are listed here in the Sedgwick County area do require a fence permit. How the fence permit process works, just for your education, is we use a zoning permit form, which is used for fences, small sheds, and other small carports, other small projects. It is a minimal fee, and what we require of the applicant is that they submit, along with the application, they submit a site plan drawing of where they're wanting to place their fence. We also require them to lay out stakes and string showing where that fence will be located to ensure that we're not encroaching on any drainage easements. And so we have gone through some recent revisions in our fence process. This is the application itself, which is again used for fences as well as other projects as well. But in looking at this particular issue of where, in namely a wooden privacy fence, where those posts, bracings, and rails go, in looking at this, if you take, again, the communities of Bel Air, Derby, and Hayesville are currently have adopted regulations. And so we are looking at, of course, we want to, as Paul had mentioned, we want to increase and improve the aesthetics of the community. And city staff feel that the good neighbor policy for fences is a good recommendation. And so what you have before you this evening, this is the draft ordinance. And in it, this would add a section of code to the fence regulations. So it'd be 17.03.30.c.8, fence design standard. And what this, you can read this for yourselves, but what it says is that the good side, that finished side of the fence, is going to be facing outward on someone's property, either facing outward or that those are incorporated into the fence. There are a few different design options, one of them being a shadow box fence. For you this evening, I also have a few pictures of what some acceptable fence design would be should this regulation be adopted. So what you see in this first picture, of course, again, we're looking at the exterior of the fence. And so you can clearly see that this is just the finished side, that the posts and everything are included inside. The second one, this is where the railings are actually incorporated into the design at the bottom and then towards the top, and then the top itself. This next one, again, another example of how the posts and, how the bracings can be incorporated into the fence itself. And then the last picture is that shadow box where the pickets are actually faced on either side of the fence. And so all of these four examples would be what would be approved under the recommended adoption of this new regulation. So again, we did, I think if you take out, Mays, Park City, and Wichita, that number goes from 10 down to 7. You have 3 there. Valley Center, if we were 4, it's almost half. It is over half. So again, we are recommending approval. Again, this is just another way that we can continue to enhance the aesthetics of the community, especially in our residential neighborhoods. So if the board, we would like a motion on this, a motion and a second to recommend approval of this. And then if you do recommend approval of it through a vote, then this will be submitted to City Council for formal adoption in the form of an ordinance. The first reading would be on July 11th, and then the second on July 18th. So again, staff does recommend approval of this. I'm more than happy to stand for any questions. City Administrator Clark is with us this evening as well, and I know he would stand to answer any questions also in regards to this change to our fence regulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was pretty enlightening. Yeah, I think all the communities I've been involved with in the past have had good neighbor fences in most states. Pretty much everybody's doing it now. I don't know if Kansas may be just kind of slow in adopting, but
Maybe.
maybe. Yeah. But especially in the what's really critical is in some of the suburban areas where you've got housing developments and so it's again, good neighbor. Anyway, questions from members to staff?
You said that it was brought to the city's attention. How did that happen?
So just in general inspections we've been dealing with a couple of fence matters with property owners, and they built the fence, a couple of fences where the posts are on the outside. And so I think there was the assumption that we do have that policy in place, which upon review of the regulations, we don't. And so this is just to formalize that process.
In the process of inspections, you recognize this was happening. No one came and complained.
No.
Okay.
No.
How would it be enforced?
So what'll happen is this would then be part of the permit approval process. So not only are we looking at the stakes and strings, so what'll happen is before we approve the fence permits moving forward, we do a pre-construction inspection to where one of our inspectors goes out to the property and looks to make sure that the site plan that they've drawn matches the stakes and strings that they've marked off. And so this design would also be reviewed as part of that as well. There's also a post-construction inspection. So let's say if they said that they were either, they changed the location of the fence or they changed the design of the fence, city staff does have the authorization to say you have to change this. You sign, because they're going to sign that permit before any work starts with the understanding that they're going to build it where and how as indicated in the application.
What would you do with a repair to a fence that wouldn't meet that requirement that's already in existence?
So with any new fences moving forward, they would be required to meet existing standards. So an example of
If a
that.
guy went out in his backyard and tried to fix his fence, he's required to get a permit?
So there is a caveat to that. If you are replacing, and this is in the city zoning code, if you're replacing 50% or less of an existing fence, then it can be done like for like. But if they were replacing more than 50%, you are required to get a permit, and that new fence would be required to meet existing standards.
When you set a minimal fee, is it a fee that is standard, or is it based on the size of the project?
No, it's a flat $25.
$25.
Yes.
This may be a redundant question, but just to make sure assumptions are cleared, this certainly doesn't apply to existing fences in any way. There's no.
Correct. Yeah. So we're not going to go out. Yeah. No, absolutely. You're correct that we are not going to go out and send letters to everyone saying you have to change your fence. No, this would apply. So with the ordinance, if this is adopted, it would apply to any fence permit that would be done after it takes effect. So July 18th is the city council date, and then it's published in the newspaper. So 2 days later. So technically any fence permits issued after July 20th would be required to meet this additional standard. But no, we are not going to go after residents or businesses that have fences that don't meet this requirement. We are not going to do that. No.
Figured as much, just thought I would take that assumption off the table.
I appreciate the question. Thank you.
We're not drawing a distinction between wood posts, metal posts, wood fence, chain link fence. It's all got to be, on the opposite side.
Correct. Yeah. The only reason we mentioned wooden fences is because normally with a chain link fence or say a wrought iron, that design is already incorporated into it.
Okay.
It's mainly with the wooden privacy fences. This would also apply to say a 4-foot high picket fence. If you were doing that where the slats, there's some space in between the slats, those railings and bracings would still have to be on the inside. Yes, you can still see them, but they still would have to be on the inside of the fence.
If seeing and hearing no further questions of staff, I think everybody's got a chance to read through it. It's really brief. And I for one would make a motion to approve. I think it's reasonable. And anybody for a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay, motion passes. Of course, it goes on to city council, so that's where the decision is really going to be made.
Right. Yeah. So what'll happen is the first reading and thank you again. I appreciate the discussion and all of your questions. Thank you very much. We're always looking for ways that we can, again, improve the community, and this is one way that we can do that. And so this will now go before city council at their July 11th meeting. And so I will, of course, report the findings of the board as part of my staff report to them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now that finishes any new business. Now at this point, any items that members would like to bring up for staff or any edited discussion?
One question that Brent addressed last time, has there been any development on crosswalks near the new aquatic center?
Crosswalks near the aquatic center?
Well, right now,
You mean across
right now
Meridian?
we have on Meridian, we have one way down on whatever street it is past, I think it's Sun Court. You got one in the middle, and then you got one at the middle school, but the one down by Sun has no lights.
I have to defer to City Administrator Clark.
That's fine.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Good, good. We have not made any further progress or investigation into additional crosswalks, by the new recreation facility or north by, I think, Southwind or Northwind or Sun Court.
Sun Court. So is the plan, I understand it's not cost effective to put a sidewalk between Sun and South and Northwind just for the drainage reasons, but will there be a crosswalk that stops traffic when this is all said and done for kids to get across Meridian in the morning? That they don't have to walk through grass, wet grass, snow, and other elements? Can they stay on the sidewalk and get across the street?
On Southwind or at Goff? Because I have had a request on
Anything
Goff.
north of the middle school?
There is not any currently in the plan.
So if you live on Sun Court and you need to get to the middle school, you're going to have to walk through the grass or just cut across the street as best you can.
There is a crosswalk, it's just not lit. And so there's not an actual push button or any of those things, but there is a culvert on the east side of the roadway. In a couple locations, they're just not actually lit with a crosswalk.
That's what I'm asking. Will there be a lit crosswalk when we get this thing done? Because as I go to work in the morning, especially during the winter when it's still dark, there's been some close calls.
Yes.
But we'll see.
We have not had those conversations yet.
Gotcha.
Good. That'd be,
Thank you.
all right. Anybody else? This is a good opportunity. Staff's right there.
The only items I would have for the board is to wish each one of you a happy Independence Day next week. And then also just a reminder that we will meet, our next board meeting will be on July 25th, 7 p.m. here in this room. So please go ahead and put that on your calendars. We will be meeting on July 25th. And that is the rest of the business that I had for the board this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Unless there's any other comments or suggestions by the board, I'll make a motion to adjourn this evening.
Second.
And we have a second. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? None. We have officially adjourned at 7:33. Pretty brave. Congrats.